Welcome to a new live show where we are going to learn from one of the most brilliant people that I've come across in the health and wellness space. At 81, she has the metabolic health of someone in their 20s. So, what better way to learn about closing the gap between your health span and lifespan than from someone who's in their 80s who has her health completely? And what's so fascinating about health is this always seems to be a common New Year's resolution, right? Everybody's like, I want to get in the best health of my life. And there's so much in this conversation of health, whether it's nutrition, whether it's exercise, whether it's supplementation, whether it's, all these different products and things that people are telling you to take. And it's so interesting learning about health from an amazing person who I've had the pleasure to work with for, gosh, going on 8 months now. Her name is Suzanne Chaney, and she has been in the health and wellness space for 50 plus years. And I am so excited to have her come on and share a little bit about her story, how she got started in this whole health and wellness space, and why health is really her purpose, right? Her purpose is to help people transform their health and take care of it and control it before it controls them. So, with no further ado, I'm going to bring on my amazing friend and client, Suzanne Chaney.
Hi. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone.
Suzanne,
As
thank you so much for being here with us. I'm so excited to learn from you. When we first started working together, this whole closing the gap between your lifespan versus your health span was really something that you've always essentially kind of talked about since really we've known each other, because so many people feel like as they get older, right, and they get into that kind of final chapter of life, that they're so used to seeing a lot of people's like health decline as they age. But for you, it seems like you've just gotten healthier as you've gotten older. So tell us a little bit about, who is Suzanne and how did you get started in the health and wellness space?
well, I was lucky to be born into a family where my mom and dad were really interested in, eating healthy. I'm from Southern California, lived in a small beach town. Lucky for our family, we had enough property where the house was to have a garden in the backyard. So we even had some chickens. So we had fresh eggs and we had fresh vegetables just about most of the year. And my dad would grow sweet potatoes, so we had homegrown sweet potatoes during the wintertime when the gardens don't usually grow as well as they do in the summertime. So that set an impression on my mind that I enjoyed eating healthy. And as I got older, I was really searching for my life's purpose, like why was I put on this planet? And I finally decided it was to inspire others to take good care of their health and use myself as the example to do that. So um, I I've always taken good care of my health. I've done things like yoga and walking from many since high school, really, to maintain my good health. And at one point, I had a visit to the gynecologist for the usual checkup. And she asked if I'd had a bone density scan, and I said no, I hadn't, and I agreed to have one. And she came back that I had the beginnings of osteopenia, which is not osteoporosis, but it could lead to that. And she wanted me to take this drug called Fosamax, which I knew caused the bones just to be brittle. They looked denser when you looked at it through the X-ray pictures, but really they were just the drug prevented the dead bone cells or the falling off and being replaced with new bone cells. So the bone really wasn't healthy, and it was actually becoming brittle because of these old bone cells not being able to be sloughed off. So she wanted me to take that and come back in 3 months. And I thought to myself, I don't do drugs. I'm not starting now. And so then I asked a couple chiropractors that I knew, and they told me to start, each one told me to start lifting weights in addition to what I was already doing, yoga and walking. And so I knew a person that was the coach of gymnastics that I trusted, and asked him who he would suggest as a personal trainer that had some good sense about them. They maybe had a degree in exercise physiology. And he gave me a name of a person, and I started lifting weights. And when I went back for my follow-up report, which was 3 months later, the doctor was very excited to tell me that my bone density had gone up 7%. And she'd never seen Fosamax work that well because it usually increased bone density about 3% in 3 years. So she wanted to know what I had done. Well, I told her I started lifting weights. And I'd never really been in a gym, as that, you go to gym in high school because that's just what you do in high school. But I never went to a gym to work out until I started this program to increase my bone density. And I found that I really enjoyed it. It was a break from my everyday work schedule, running my own business, and I just had fun. And it became a challenge. I'm an over aggressive person that really wants to do over the top whatever I'm trying to accomplish. So I really got into it, and my bone density just continued to get better and better. And it's been about 6 months to thereabouts. I was in the gym, and I had done some exercise, and I was stretching and pulling against the support for the bench press bar. And my foot slipped on the floor, and I grabbed and I accidentally pushed the 50-pound bench press bar on my extended shin. I had to have 13 stitches, but my bone didn't break. So that really was the deciding factor that I was really on the right track, that adding exercise to my already good diet and supplementation, that I really started to really increase my health. And it didn't decline as I aged, it just got better. So I've decided that my reason for being here is to inspire others to take good care of their health, and that I'd love to be their guide on that in that process. So I have found many people that I've helped. I have many followers that really enjoy working with me. We've had a lot of fun. I'm not a personal trainer. I have two actually. I always like to have one as a backup, but I work with both of them each 2 days a week. So I lift iron 4 days a week. And on the other days, I take a walk, try to get about 10,000 steps in. And that's more for heart health and, just being able to have good breathing practices and be able to do that kind of walking fast is another way of working out. It's not going to really increase your bone density, but it has other benefits. So that's what I've done. And my theme is to help you close the gap between your health span and your lifespan, so that you're young and active at 80 instead of old and sedentary at 50, which is getting to be more and more and more the case, unfortunately, here in the United States and as well in other countries, Europe, England, and so forth. I actually came across an article in the newspaper about a week ago now. It was a study done that they were looking at the life expectancy and the health span of the baby boomers born after 1945. And they found that the lifespan is increasing, but the health span is really decreasing. So even in their 50s and 60s, they're needing help with eating and bathing and just everyday being able to exist. They happen to have help, which is unheard of in earlier years in this country. So the studies found that, obviously things were not going well, and it seemed to correspond to people born before 1945 had much better health spans than did people born after 1945. And if you think about it, 1945 and before, that were the years of the war, World War II. And people lived in, I don't know, of course in England was bad because they were right in the middle of it, and Europe as well. The United States was on the sidelines, but we were still involved with shortages. The fresh fruits and vegetables were not that readily available. Meat, butter, cheeses, and those things were off the menu. But they found that these folks, and it's because they lived on what they used to call in those times the victory gardens, which was everybody was growing their own vegetables in their backyard. And so, because they were living a more plant-based diet, out of necessity, it was really a very large health benefit for them in the long run. So, as compared to people born after 1945, they had access to more red meats, more fat, butter, cheeses, those sorts of things. And they had, what was I going to say? Yes, sorry about that. I have a little brain problem there. They had access to these more rich foods in their diet, and as a result, they became overweight. That led to diabetes. Diabetes is a platform for many other problems. Heart disease is a result. Strokes, diabetes can cause that. Diabetes causes a lot of health issues with the insulin problems and the glucose and all these issues that weren't problems for people born before 1945 because they didn't have access to these red meats, fats, and fast food restaurants started to grow and become a something you found on every street corner in the town, sometimes 2 or 3 on the same street corner. So people had more access to what I call junk food because it was more readily available after the war ended. And so as a result, people's health have declined from that. So the diabetes has increased, heart disease has increased, cancer has increased, different strokes, all these issues have increased. And it's resulting in people having a shorter health span. And that's not necessarily a have to happen situation if they go back to a more plant-based diet, like was what people were kind of forced to live on during the war years. So that's I think a very interesting field. They're actually confirming what I've always thought, that healthy eating more plant-based foods. You can still eat fats. You need fats. I need healthy fats, but not saturated fats and triglycerides and all these other kinds of fats that are readily available in the fast food industry, and lots of things on the store shelves are not healthy, and that's more and more people are living on unhealthy food sources. And as a result, we see an unhealthy population here in the United States. Diabetes raises, heart diseases raise, cancer. All of the major diseases that influence the health of the American population are diet related. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, no, it's powerful. And I remember like going back to one of the first conversations that you and I had. One of the big things that you were saying is that the not only is the food quality has it declined over the years, but one of the things that you told me that I thought was really eye-opening is that I always, when it came to nutrition, one of the things that I used to do is I would kind of go based off of the nutrition information of the food. So a lot of times I would be like, oh, shoot, I might be getting too much nutrients. But you talked about an interesting idea where you were saying that, well, Paul, you're probably actually getting less because there's no way to really check how accurate those nutrition facts information are, that they put on the label of things. And also the quality of the food has just declined. So it's like 23 grams back then is not the same as like 23 grams now. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's probably a huge reason as well why a lot of people are, lacking a lot of nutrients. And I know it's a huge thing that you can probably speak for your generation more than I can, because I just remember growing up with my grandparents. They were always like deficient in something, and the way that the food has drastically changed was a huge reason why.
Yeah. Well, you just have to think about it. We now have better transportation. You can get blueberries in the winter because they come from South America, or they're summer in South America and it's blueberry season. So they pick blueberries, maybe a little not ripe, put them in cartons and boxes and crates and put them on the airplane and send them to the United States. And we can go to Trader Joe's or wherever and have blueberries in the winter. Um, they taste okay. They don't taste nearly as good as the ones grown in your own location. I'm always excited when I see blueberries, fresh local blueberries show up in my farmer's market that I always go to. And then foods are being mass produced. They're grown on poorly nutrient supplied you know, soils. They lack good nutrition um, for the plants, and they're high in nitrogen and low in nutrient concentrations. They're grown um, as quickly as possible. They force grow them in some situations where, and then they pick them green, and so they don't, like tomatoes or whatever, they don't spoil and get bruised. They're still green, and they can ripen later when they get to their destination, and then they're shipped to the grocery stores in the local area and put on the shelf. So, the vegetable could have been picked a month or 6 weeks ago before you ever got it into the grocery store. So, it doesn't have any nutritional value when it's raised, grown like that, and transported from point A to point B, which could be thousands of miles apart. And that's what people depend upon as their food sources. And another misconception, if it's organic, it's healthy. Not necessarily. Organic means it's been grown without herbicides and pesticides, and not and with organic fertilizers. It does not necessarily mean that it's healthy, because the farmer can't control what's in the water that comes from something maybe polluting the water upstream that he uses to water his plants, and he can't control the toxins in the air that surround his plants. So people tend to think that organic means healthy. Well, it's better than it's not being put uh, artificial, commercial fertilizers and pesticides on it, but it does not mean it's healthy. And so your best source is finding an organic gardener that lives within your area, 10 square mile area or a little more. And that's when you really get the nutrition from your food, because they pick it the night before and bring it to the farmer's market early the next morning. So that's a lot less time between picking it green in South America and producing, putting it on the shelf in the United States. So that's the advantage of more and more farmers markets that are popping up in our communities. So if you've got one nearby, you're lucky.
Yeah, powerful. And Suzanne, I think what's so interesting about this conversation is you really started out your professional career as like a scientist, where you really looked at the science part. And what's so fascinating is your husband Steve as well taught nutrition for pretty much his entire professional career in at the medical school in North Carolina, and ultimately developed a program there. How how important do you think nutrition is? That like the first place to start, where if somebody wants to kind of close the gap between their lifespan versus their health span, where do you suggest like a lot of people start?
Well, you have to start by thinking about your eating habits, your lifestyle, exercise, and supplementation. This day and age, because of the way our food is grown and sold in the supermarkets, it's lacking nutrition. So supplementation has become not just a choice; it's really something that you need to do to make sure that your all bases are covered. You have to be careful about what's good nutrition in a supplement and what's not. You'll see ads on the TV that you can take 6 of these capsules and that contain all the fruits that you need, and 6 of these capsules that contain all the vegetables you need in your diet for a day. Well, that's just baloney. That doesn't work. If you put one serving of dehydrated broccoli, which weighs about 16 grams, into a half-gram capsule, that's the size of the capsules that they're advertising on the television. So to put one serving size of broccoli, you would need, which is 8 grams, you would need 16 capsules to contain the powder the dehydrated broccoli would come down to. And they say they have 6 vegetables in a single capsule, and or maybe 3 capsules, and 6 fruits, and that's just impossible. They can't put that into a capsule like that. You couldn't swallow it. So there's hoaxes like that. There's many of the nutritional supplements, even in Whole Foods and health food stores. Their label is more uh, marketing and advertising than it is based on science. So you really have to be a wise shopper when it comes to choosing a good nutritional program because of all these ploys that are played by the manufacturers of these products. A lot of them are produced by a single manufacturer, then they slap Costco's label on it or Walmart's label or who knows all label on these supplements that are just um, scientific concoctions that are not nutritionally sound, and they're not going to give you what you think you're going to get. And if you buy something like that at Walmart, Costco's, health food stores, and thinking you're saving money, you're not really saving money because you're harming your health. And to recover your health is a lot more expensive than to maintain your health. So that's another thing to consider.
Yeah, powerful. And I just want to say hello to Sam. Sam, thank you so much for being here. Happy Thursday. Thanks for hopping in. And Suzanne, in terms of that article that you read, because I think it's so interesting when you actually have another article to really kind of, not only bounce ideas off of, but really gain kind of what is the direction of focus that a lot of people are really keying in. What was something that really surprised you about that article that you read in this idea of closing the gap between your health span
I
versus
think
lifespan?
the biggest thing that surprised me is that people that were born before 1945 were better off than those born after 1945. And then I got to thinking about it. Well, yeah, that's because during the war years, everybody was living off of victory gardens. I mean, that was a thing. I was a kid then, not very old. I was born in 43. So, but I can remember gardens, and after the war, we still had gardens, and there was no reason to think that my dad didn't do it any different before 1945. And so I started thinking, yeah, people were eating more plant-based, more healthy diets, and there wasn't the fast transportation. There weren't jets that could go, around the world in however many hours, and so that just wasn't the case in times before 1943. It was. really kind of close to the Wright brothers' time, more close than we are now. And so now now we have rocket ships that can go to the moon and who knows what. But so all sorts of things that have made it easier and faster to get food into your local sources were not the same. And as a result, this faster production, make it grow as fast as you can, pick it green, ship it, store it till it gets on the shelves. That didn't happen before 1945. Those are all things that have happened since. And so they were looking at that and noticed, that heart disease, diabetes, all these cancers and things have increased when people had more access to um, junk food and red meat. Red meat's not really healthy. You can eat it once in a while, but it's not a good daily source of protein. You're better off with chicken and fish. And there too, you have to be careful what's in the chicken, what's in the fish, how's it been grown. All these things come into play. So again, the closer you can be to the farmer that's producing the food that you want to eat, the better off you are, and the more natural, less natural fertilizers and less commercial fertilizers on your plants makes a difference. And so, and then the other big, huge difference is people have more readily access to all these foods. I mean, you go into Costco and just look, it's full to the ceiling of boxes and boxes of different canned things and groceries and freezer compartments that are half a block long. All this stuff is available to people. And for some reason or another, taste kind of takes over eating healthy. Somebody would rather have something that really tastes good than, maybe eating steamed broccoli or green beans or who knows, and some steamed uh, chicken or broiled chicken or something like that. So it's just a whole different lifestyle, and the lifestyle has obviously led to the diseases that are common in the United States and other countries, England, Europe, they have the same problems. So we're battling that as a
Yeah,
result. And as a result,
powerful.
their health span is getting shorter, even though they're living longer.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting, Suzanne, obviously like you and I work together, and majority of the clientele that I serve is in the 50 plus age demographic. And it's so interesting when I have conversations with a lot of them. We talk a lot about how it's more than just nutrition, but it almost kind of seems in many instances like the world has kind of completely shifted how it was back then versus how it is now, in the sense like back then it was more active, it was more like physical, like labor intensive,
mhm,
whereas now, like you're saying, it's a very sedentary lifestyle. It's a lot more mentally and emotionally challenging. And do you think that that's one of the reasons why as well, is like now people actually have to figure out how to incorporate exercise into their daily lives, whereas before it was kind of just
that
usually in
was
the
it.
form
Yeah,
of their job or things like
right.
that.
Yeah. Well, yes. I like to say that the people working at the computer works made everybody couch potatoes. so now it's the TV and the computer in their job. So yes, they don't. Everybody's online, just like we're online right now, and that's the way people spend a lot of their time. And they are. It's kind of funny. You hear ads on the TV. They have these things that you can stare, like cycling on little things, and it says it's low resistance and easy to work. Well, you want something with resistance. That's how you build muscle. So there's all these gimmicks and gadgets that are not really don't do what they're supposed to be made to do. But yeah, in the depression years in the 30s and 40s, people grew, had raised things on farms, cattle, pigs, whatever. And the farmer got up early in the morning, hitched his plow to the horses and the mules, and went out and walked behind them and plowed the fields and worked hard, slinging bales of hay and all that. And so now they have equipment that does all that. They have the hay baler that rakes it up and puts it in rows, and it comes along and puts it in a bale and puts it up on a conveyor belt to the cart behind the whole process. So let's drive it into the barns, get it out of the weather. I mean, that was all done by hand. And so, of course, people were healthier, and they ate more because they had all this exercise as their work involved um, required it. Today, we don't really require all the calories that are consumed because our jobs are really very sedentary.
Yeah.
People got used during COVID to being working at home and instead of the 9 to 5 cubicle. Um, so that makes it life
Mm.
even more sedentary. As I mean, the 9 to 5 cubicle, you did have to get up and drive your car and walk from the parking lot. You had to do a little bit of exercise to get to work. Now you come from the kitchen, you could probably even be in your PJs and sit at the
Mm.
computer all day. So, yeah, I try to encourage people to, every hour get up and walk around. If you've got a yard to walk in, get up and walk around the house. Better yet, if you can, take a walk. Get a dog. You need to take a walk every once in a while. So, yeah,
Yeah.
the
Powerful.
whole thing, our whole way of life is shifted to unhealthy habits. No exercise, eating the wrong kinds of foods,
Mm.
not getting enough rest, going to bed way too late. So, and our health is paying and showing the results of that. Health span
Yeah.
is increasing.
You have this great quote that I love where you look at the investments that you make in your exercise, nutrition, and supplementation as the real health insurance. And I love the quote that you share. Will you share it with everyone?
Oh, yeah, I say that health insurance that you pay for, you have to get sick to use it. So I wouldn't really call it health insurance. It's sick insurance. And it's much easier to maintain good health than to try and regain it. And it's a lot less expensive to maintain good health than to try and regain it. And the suffering that's involved, if you maintain good health, you're not going through. I mean, having to go through all these chemotherapies and um, invasive heart surgeries and on and on and on, that's not easy to recover from, and it sets you back. You don't have the energy, you don't have the get up and go that you did before. Whereas if you maintain your health, I mean, I'm in my 80s only because I've been on the planet that long, but I really have, um, I mean, I can outdo many people half my age or even younger um, because I have my health. I go to the doctor once a year to get a physical. Everything is in the green. I don't have any outliers in the blood work. I don't have any diabetes. I don't have heart disease. I don't have cancer. I enjoy my good life of health. Whereas other people go to the doctor and they get all these drugs for heart disease, diabetes, and yada, yada, yada. I helped one lady that was to lose 100 pounds of weight. She was on 19 medications. She was always in the hospital trying to recover from side effects of these medications. She had kidney stones and high blood pressure and on and on and on. She was on 19 medications. And by just the simple thing of losing weight, it wasn't simple, but it was a simple concept of losing weight. She is no longer diabetic. Her blood sugar is under control. She's not got high blood pressure. She has more energy. I mean, she couldn't even walk up 4 steps without having to sit down and rest. So um, it does make a huge difference um, to be in a healthy body, to be
Yeah.
able to enjoy life and do what you want to do, even
Yeah,
pick up
there
pick
go
up a
ahead.
bag of groceries from the you know, I always I always get a little insulted when the bagger says, "Do you want me to put this in, my all my vegetables and things for what I've gotten at the grocery store? Do you want me to put this in 3 bags, ma'am?" No, you can put it all in one. I can handle it. So, but I mean, that's the norm. They put two or three cans in a bag and then another bag and another bag so people can carry them.
Mm.
So I just show them my guns and say, no, I can handle it.
Yeah,
kind of, kind of tease them.
powerful. I want to say hello to Angie, my good friend. Thank you so much for hopping in. So good to see you. I'm so happy that it's working. I was kind of like freaking out because I was on my computer and for some reason the live stream wasn't showing up on my computer, but I see that people are able to get in, so I'm happy. That's good. And this is recorded. I I know if you attended any of my audio events, I talked about how I wanted to kind of merge the power of LinkedIn Live video and the audio events, right? And the the audio events are so powerful for interaction. So if anybody has a question in the comments, you're more than welcome to drop it in the comments, or, and this is like my new thing, send me a DM on LinkedIn, or however, if you know we're connected on another platform, you can do it there, and I will send you the link to the studio, and you can actually hop in and meet Suzanne and ask her a question in the studio. So if any of you want to do that, you're more than welcome to just shoot me a DM on LinkedIn or in the comments, and maybe I can find it and send you guys the link to the studio. But Suzanne, there was something that you said when when I really like first met you before, way before we started working together, and it was this really powerful quote and perspective about how when you have your health, you have kind of like the whole world at your fingertips, right? But when you don't have your health, that's really like the only thing that you care about. And what's been so interesting for me, right, as we talk about this topic of closing the gap between your lifespan versus your health span, is everybody loves to reference how brilliant Steve Jobs was. And don't get me wrong, like he was probably one of the most brilliant people to ever live. But what's so interesting is the thing that I always remember about Steve Jobs is I remember like he was dying, and he would always say like I would have gave up my billions for my health. And I'm kind of wondering, Suzanne, like in terms of this idea of, due to the technological advancement, right, people are living longer, but there's a lot of health conditions and illnesses where once you get it, there's still no cure for it, even though there's cures and things for everything else. Do you also feel like one of the major issues as well that plagues a lot of people in that older demographic is the fact that they're also outliving their money, right? Because
Yeah.
people weren't projected to live that long, right? And due to all this advancement, like people are living longer, but their money is running out, or people are being impacted by inflation, right? So I'd love to know, like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you have any thoughts or insights that you would like to share with anyone?
I haven't thought of it in that light, but yes, I mean we've covered our needs and wants with being frugal with savings plans and stocks and all that sort of thing. Um, but yes, grant it. People say, well, it's healthy. It's expensive to buy healthy foods. Well, if you go around and look in this, and if you shop around the edges of the grocery stores, you actually spend less money than you do if you shop in the center and you buy all this canned goods and these chips and ice creams and all these things, um, canned canned spaghettios and junk food. Make it quick and easy because of the lifestyle. Mom has 3 kids and they're all going different directions at dinner time and trying to get them fed, and it's run them to the soccer game, run them to the baseball game. Mom throws something in a bag for them to eat on the way, so they're not getting food that's good for them, and it is more expensive. So, and then you know I don't want to get into politics, but the current situation is it's costing you a lot more money to live. I know I shop for things I can't get in the health food or in the farmer's market to fill in with some things from Trader Joe's. And, I'm buying the same amount of the same things and I'm paying a lot more money for the same amount of items. So yes, inflation is been eating into a lot. Some people who haven't got a good foundational plan and financial stability, them having to choose between paying the rent and feeding their kids. So, and that's a very strong stress factor on everybody involved. The parent that can't feed the child is hungry, they don't do well in school, and it's a vicious cycle. If you're hungry, you can't think right, and you get hangry, as they say, and then it leads to acting out, not behaving appropriately in school, and all sorts of things that happen when you can't have the proper nutrition your body needs for just to take one day at a time. Um, so it makes a huge difference. And if they're having to, and unfortunately, some of these junk food stuff is cost more per say amount of gram of protein than if you bought a piece of meat or a hamburger meat or something like that. There's I don't know the exact numbers, but they were calculated how much per pound of protein you paid when you got a package of hot dogs, and it's like 17 pounds, $17 per pound of the protein in the hot dog. You'd have to buy that many um, pounds of. Let's see, it was like 17. You'd have to eat 17 more times hot dogs to get the same amount of protein that you would get from, say, a couple of eggs or a piece of red meat or chicken or fish. So, it's very expensive. Junk food is a very expensive source of protein, and it doesn't have any. They don't have fiber. They don't have any added nutritional ingredients unless they use enriched grains to make a hamburger bun or hot dog bun. Enriched is, they take out 15, 20 nutrients and add back 2 or 3, and they call it enriched. So there's so much adulteration that goes on to our foods and how they're raised, how they're transported, that by the time we get them, the nutrient value is very, very low.
Yeah.
There's been studies done that showing that actually the nutrient value of apples and fruits and vegetables have declined from what they had in the 30s as to what they have now so even when someone says, yes, I eat a healthy diet, well, you may be eating a healthy diet, but that apple, that carrot doesn't have as much nutrition in it as it did in the 40s, 50s, back, later or earlier time in history. So it's a catch-22. There's really no getting around it, not using
Yeah. I remember like one of the most eye-opening things that you told me, and this is kind of going back to something that we talked about earlier, where I thought that maybe I was getting like too much nutrients, but you were like, no, Paul, you're probably not getting enough. And I remember when you and I first started working together, my whole thought process on supplementation was I knew that as you got older, it was harder for you to like maintain nutrients. So like you don't absorb as much like from food that you eat, and your body doesn't produce it naturally. So I knew all these things. But what was so interesting was when you bring up the shortage, you asked the question, it's like, so based off of like what you showed with the quality of food lessening, it made it pretty clear that okay, people probably aren't getting enough, and it's like if you aren't taking supplementation, then how are you getting enough? And my answer was like, well, I guess like I'm probably not, right? And what's so interesting is you talked earlier about kind of the way that you close the gap between your health span versus lifespan in your experience is with like your 3 pillars of health, basically exercise, nutrition, and then supplementation. I was just thinking about this idea because I it's a post that I'm dropping on LinkedIn soon, but I recently, when I was in Jacksonville, I went to lunch with my aunt, and we went to this place, and normally like I don't eat a lot of like desserts and all these things when I go out. But we went to this place and they had this special thing. It was a flaming pineapple butter cake or something. I love pineapple. So I was
Of
like, "Oh,
course.
this is intriguing." And what was so funny is when I ate it, I didn't realize that they like drowned that thing with rum, and I was like, "Oh, I should have known. That's why
Oh,
the thing was able to set on fire." But it was such a very powerful life lesson for me in the moment because after I did it, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is literally like this shiny object syndrome thing, right? Where it's like you see the new shiny ad or you see like the new shiny. It always seems like there's like one of these new health and wellness companies that pop up. It seems like every day almost. I see it like all over my news feed on all the other platforms besides LinkedIn. And I feel like that's a huge challenge for a lot of people, right? Like obviously the more that we get into the series, we'll break down on like teaching people how to read supplementation labels and sharing with them things to look for and all these things. But what would you just share with people on a very like generic and basic level to kind of introduce the idea of supplementation? What are some things that you would say for them to really look for so that they're finding something that's high quality? And like you said, they're not in that hot dog situation where you're just buying something that you think works and you have to invest more money to get stuff that, actually works.
well, unfortunately, in this country, the majority of the labels on a nutrition product are marketing labels, not science-based labels. So they'll put things in a multivitamin like choline and inositol. You couldn't swallow a multivitamin tablet if it had enough choline and inositol in it to meet your daily requirement. It would just be a huge, huge pill. But since the label's inflated with nutrient levels and more of them, that's a marketing label. It's just getting you because it looks good. Whereas it's different from one that's a scientifically based label. Are the B vitamins in the proper ratio? Do you have all the micronutrients you need? It goes on and on. So it's just science based labeling or is rare, and majority of them out there is marketing based labels, and everybody wants to continue what they've been doing and take a pill and make it better, and that just doesn't work. You have got to change your habits. You've got to change what you eat. You've got to have exercise, and then you need to supplement. But you can't take a pill and continue to do what you have been doing and expect different results. I think they call that stupidity or whatever. So
Oh, the definition of insanity.
insanity.
Doing the same thing over and over again with
And expecting
expecting
a
a different
different result.
result.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
that's a good example of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to say hello to my friend Olivia who hopped in. Olivia, thanks for hopping in. Suzanne, I want to read this comment that Olivia says. We'll see if we can pull it up on the screen. Okay, does it? Okay, it's just apparently Restream is a little laggy tonight, but she says, I concur. I used to think we were poor as a kid because my family ate from our garden in the backyard. And when I go to friends' homes for dinner, it was already made food. And she has that the laughing emoji. And she says, as I
Yeah.
got older, I understood. And what's
Yeah.
so interesting about this conversation, I'll kind of share a little bit about my experiences. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and I was actually just talking about this earlier today in an audio event where the the local food that they had in Hawaii wasn't really like the healthiest. It was a lot of like high fats. There wasn't really a lot of protein and nutritional value really in anything. And nutrition wasn't really something that a lot of people talked about. Well, what's funny is I've known my aunt pretty much my entire life, and she was always the outlier. She was eating vegetables, she was like gardening and doing all these things. And as I got older, Olivia, to relate to your story, I understand now why my aunt, who's close to Suzanne's age, they have really similar stories. They don't look their age. They're healthy. Can they have more energy than a lot of people, like way younger. They can do more things. It it really is such an interesting idea, though, how impactful nutrition is, right? Yet so many times for us entrepreneurs, and when our days get crazy, we're just like, oh, I'll just order something, right? Or people are like drinking cups and cups of coffee to try to get through the day. It really does put a lot of things into perspective as to why we kind of are in the state that we're in, right? Because a lot of people say that they value their health, and I mean, I'm even guilty of this. Like I will take accountability for it. Like there are times where I put my health on the back burner, and Suzanne always has to remind me. It's like, Paul, it's like if you don't have your health, you don't really have anything, and it there's so much truth to that. So I absolutely love everything that you shared. If any, like I said, if anybody wants to come in the studio, or if you have a question, you can drop it in the comments, either or just shoot me a DM on LinkedIn, or you can drop a comment. Like I would love to come to the studio, and I can reach out and send you the link. I I really do think that what's so powerful about these video conversations is, number one, you get to actually see people on video, and it just does so much for building relationships and deeper connections when you actually get to like have a conversation, or if that person, you have a question and that person can answer it, and because this is recorded, you can like go back, and be like, oh, that's what they said, and revisit this conversation. So I love the everything that you said, Suzanne, and I'm I'm really curious for you. What are your thoughts on this idea that a lot of people think that they always have things figured out? I experienced this a lot when I was in the finance industry. A lot of people were like, "Oh, I have everything taken care of," or I'm sure you come across this with people that you have conversations with. "Oh, Suzanne, like I already use this supplement, or I have this friend or this person." What would you say to people to really kind of like, because the thing that I would always find out is that what people think that they had, or what they think that they were taking in this case, usually wasn't the same thing. And the unfortunate part about it, which Suzanne, I'm sure you've experienced with the thousands of people that you've helped, is that just like how in the finance space, you really don't find out that you don't have what you need when you actually need it,
True.
right? And I would love to know, like, what would you say to people who feel like, I think got everything figured out? Because my answer was always like, it doesn't hurt, right, to get a second opinion. But what I really value about the way that you share things is you're not like somebody who is one of these influencers who are like, oh yeah, this is like the product that I sell. You've been in the health and wellness space for 50 plus years. I mean, we've had stories where you're like, well, I built my business with before the internet, and you're like, all I had was like a phone, and I was calling people and knocking on doors and all these things. Like, what would you really share with people to really get them to say like, hey, maybe you don't have everything figured out, right? And I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Well, we could always ask people, would you like to feel better? Or how's it working for you? And, back when we started our business, we didn't have many products in the catalog. This day and age, we do. And we had a few products, so we would start people out on a basic nutrition program, and they got better. And then they would say, then they would kind of disappear, and then they would come back and they say, yeah, I didn't have time to drop by your home and pick up some vitamins, so I went to Whole Foods and just, I've been trying those vitamins, and I need to come back to what you have. There's a whole world of difference in how I feel. Because when I started my business, I was the warehouse, the shipping department, the customer service, the sales lady, and everything in between, and the bank. I had to buy products and store them in my home to service the customers I had because I was a distribution center. They came by my home, or I shipped them UPS if they were out of town. So the world has changed now, and I'm the one who introduces them to the products and connects them with the company. I've helped them place orders, but Shackley takes care of the bank. They take the charge card, so I'm not having to deal with a charge card company, which is not fun. They have a lot of, you have to go through all these loops and hoops every year, once a year, to prove to them that you're still legitimate and you don't have holes in your computer programs, etc., that will allow it to be hacked. And it's none of it really applies to my business and the way I run a business, because I don't have a bunch of employees, etc., etc. So I hope my husband answers that. So it's different, but people realize that they do need supplements. It does make a huge difference, if nothing else, in their energy level. So I have a friend that ran a marathon, and she couldn't get past 14 miles. So I gifted her some products that would make a difference, and it did, and she even took them with her in her pocket or on her person somewhere to help her run the marathon. And she acknowledged me for that, and it made a huge difference. So she needed to supplement her body in a whole new way, because she was not somebody that was used to running 60 or 26 miles. Um, so it depends upon what you put your body through. It depends upon the health that you have or don't have, as to what you need to do. And a pill, taking a pill, even if it's listed as a nutritional supplement, and you don't know where it's manufactured, you don't know how it's manufactured, and that's more the case than not. You still need supplements, but you have to choose a reliable, science-based company that what's on the labels in every tablet or capsule in the bottle, and that's just not the case. There's a few companies that make large quantities of vitamins, slap Costco's label, Whole Foods label, Walgreens label on the same thing, and call it good. And that's a marketing label, and no solid science behind whatever's in that container. It's just not. And
Yeah.
when a company has on their label that they've been okayed by the FDA, that's a real red flag. The FDA does not okay nutritional supplements. So there's just so much that they pull the wool over the customer's eyes, because the customer doesn't know anything about what goes on, and that most of the labels are more marketing spent on the label than any science spent on the product. So it's the wild wild west out there. You have to know what you're doing to get the good nutrients into your body and supplements. And it's a necessary evil, because we don't burn as many calories on a daily basis as we did when people were in the 1940s and 50s. They worked hard. They had manual labor. Today, everybody sits in front of a computer, and that's their job. And so, that's just causing um, problems in the health, because they snack on something that's by the computer screen, instead of going into the kitchen, and since they're at home, going in the kitchen and making a healthy lunch, or even a healthy dinner. And then it's, oh, I have to hurry to get the kids here and there and everywhere, so let's just order pizza tonight. That's the way Americans live. And that's not building health. Just not.
Yeah, powerful. I want to say hello to my friend Patrick from Canada. Patrick, so good to see you. Thanks for hopping in. And Suzanne, I think one of the things that I love about the way that you approach pretty much everything that you do is it's all like science based, right? Like if anybody ever challenges you on something that you say, you always have a thing. You're like, oh yeah, it's like, would you like to see the clinical trials or the studies or all that? You always have like something to back up what you're saying. And I remember in one of our very early conversations when we started working together, I was always getting people like reaching out to me about stuff because you know how we talked about it's like one of these companies. It's like they're a dime a dozen. You know, you there's like a new one every single day. And what's so funny is you said something that I thought was really interesting, right? And
I
the
don't know
this
what I said, but hopefully it was interesting.
well, you talked about how a lot of these companies like they don't plan to be around for 5 years. Like 5 years is like how long they plan to be around. So if you're really looking at health from a longevity perspective, but the company that you're buying products for and he plans to be around for 5 years, why do you think it is that people don't ask that why question? Right? Because I feel like for me, I'm just such a naturally curious person. Like anytime that somebody says something to me, I always kind of want to know like why. I don't really even get upset or react to it as much. I'm just curious. Like, why do you think people aren't asking these questions? And I'll give you like a really clear example. So I have a good friend of mine. She recently joined this like wellness company. I don't know, less than like a year or two ago. And she comes to me, and I was just like, "Hey, I'm curious. Like, if this is so good, why hasn't it been around for longer?" And she looked at me and she said, "Oh, that's a great question." They're like, "What's innovative?" I was like, "Well, is it though? Because there's always like a lot of these companies who do the same things." I'm just really curious why you think people aren't more interested in that conversation, yet everybody's like interested in making sure, like when they have their insurance or when they need stuff, like people get really interested. Then why do you think that is?
I don't know that people really get that interested even in their insurance, but I think when it comes to nutrition and health, are gullible. If they think this is something that's a quick fix to whatever their issue is, they'll go for it. Uh, it's instant gratification. That's how the American people are. So um, they want it now, they want it quick, they want it easy, and they want fast results. And so they'll go with something. And these companies, those are the people that's their target market. That's their avatar. And this this juice, this tablet. You've heard of all these juices that can cure everything. Oh, that's a big red flag. That's not going to happen. But there's people that believe it because they want something to fix X, and they want something that's easy, and they want something that's a quick fix, and they'll go for it. And so these companies prey on these people. Um, and people are gullible. They believe that what the company's telling them is true, and then people realize, well, no, it ain't as true as I thought it was, and then the company goes downhill, poof, and then the people that start these companies, they'll think of another product approach, even some health equipment, who knows what. They'll create something, and they'll hit the market with that, and it'll be good for 4 or 5 years, and it loses steam, and then they'll try something else. I mean, that's just their MO. That's that's the plan. I don't know.
Yeah,
I like to depend upon a company that's been around for 60, let's see, almost 70 years in a couple of years. So 68 years they've been around in business. And that's there. There aren't any out there that's been around that long because the products work. The products are based on science, what's on the labels in the bottles. They go the extra mile. Quality control is a number one. So you
yeah, that's
just
powerful.
you can't buy a Cadillac for the cost of a Volkswagen. It's just like you can't buy a nutritional supplement at Costco and expect it to do anything compared to one that might cost you a little more money. But in the long run, it costs you a lot less money because what you're paying for in many, many cases is not absorbed, it's excreted out. Um, my husband taught nutrition, and he wrote the nutrition chapters in the um, major biochemistry book that's used in the medical schools. And there's lots of pictures in those books of the digestive tract, and you see all these undigested, uh, not even dissolved nutritional supplement tablets in the lower colon ready to be issued out of the body. So that's really expensive product because you don't even get anything from it. It doesn't even open up in your digestive tract. It's excreted out whole um, in the feces.
Yeah,
So
powerful. And it's so interesting because it's like when you look at this closing the gap between your health span versus lifespan, like it's such an interchangeable topic where it's like there's so many things that you could replace health with, right? Like because it's like there's so many ways that people can help you live longer, and even if you don't have money, right? But it's like you don't really get to experience the quality of life that you could if you had it. And I was thinking about this idea from kind of like a consumer perspective and how I like shop, right? So my aunt and I we're big like value shoppers, but we care about quality over quantity, right? And I think one of the things that a lot of people do is they shop based on price, but it's like you were saying that the cheapest thing isn't always going to work. There was a there's a saying that I heard on Instagram. I think it was by Bradley. I don't know who the originator was, but I heard it from Bradley, and he talked about like if you cheap, fast, and good. And he's like, if you want it to be cheap and fast, it's not going to be good. If you want it
mhm.
to be fast and good, it's not going to be cheap. If you right, and like you interchange all those ideas, and I feel like in many ways that's how a lot of people are looking at this health conversation. And I'm so happy that I don't know honestly why I didn't have the idea, because you're such a natural on video. A lot of your content that you do on LinkedIn is on video. And I was like, I don't know why I didn't have the idea to where we could have switched from audio to video and, did all these like incorporations to make it more interactive and bring that aspect of the audio events on LinkedIn Live to kind of have the
Yeah.
best of both worlds.
I
Yet,
always learn. We
go
learn
ahead.
from our. I wouldn't call it a mistake, but we learn from our experiences and do it better next time.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like you talked a lot about awareness in this conversation, right? And I feel like that's really the beginning where if people want to close the gap between their health span versus lifespan, I learned a very valuable lesson about self-awareness, right? And I want to make it very clear to anybody who's listening, like obviously Suzanne's pretty much been in and around health like her entire life, right? So it's like we understand that a lot of people may not even know like where to begin,
Right.
or this could be like a whole new foreign concept. And
Mhm.
self-awareness, it's not about knowing the answer to things, or if you're looking at a specific thing, it's not about knowing the ins and outs. It's about knowing the questions to ask, the things to look for. I remember there was somebody that I had met, that I had connected you with, and he was a big science person, and he was like really curious how, and you provided all the scientific studies and all these things, and he's like, oh wow. And then he sent me a message a while back, and he's like, oh my god, I'm still reading. He's like, there's a lot of these reports and stuff. And I was just like, yeah, because you know when people have, when they build their business and their company off of something like you were saying, which is so rare in the health and wellness space of science versus money and
Marketing.
all this type of stuff.
Marketing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is interesting.
Yeah.
Olivia said something that's interesting, and she said, quite luxury is health, wellness, and what opportunities it provides as a service. Yeah, I think what's so interesting to me is a lot of people who are active. This is actually Suzanne, and I don't know if you can kind of speak to this from your experiences as well, but a lot of times people always thought that like, oh, just because this person was an athlete or they were like a bodybuilder, all these things, that they were healthy, right? And then what's been really interesting in my perspective is there's a lot of people who really have no concept of nutrition. I know, like, one of the things when I first got into health and wellness in 2020, that was kind of when I started my whole like health and fitness journey, my whole life transformation, if you will. There was this thing that I noticed, kind of like reoccurring theme of chicken, broccoli, and brown
Yeah,
rice. That's what a lot
that
of
was
people
that
would.
was what the bodybuilders thought was the best. Yes, lots of
Yeah.
broccoli. Yeah.
Yeah, they would always say like chicken, broccoli, and brown rice. And like for a while, no joke. I mean, that's like a great meal. That's what I eat like a lot of times. Like I think it's great. But the thing that I learned that was interesting was they weren't eating that. They were just saying that. And the way that a lot of people were getting their results was through like steroids and, all
Yeah.
this other stuff that they were taking that isn't really good for you. And that was something that was really interesting to me, is that even the people that you think are like in the space and that, oh, they have to know, a lot of them really have no idea about true nutrition and health and all these things. So this is such a loaded topic. I'm so excited as we continue to move forward with this. We're going to dive into a lot of things that I know is going to help a lot of people, because over the past 50 years you've helped thousands of people. I'm really just like curious, like what is like one really powerful success story that you've had? I mean, I know there's hundreds, probably even thousands, but what was one that really kind of stands out to you that for you kind of serves as evidence that you know how to help people close the gap between their health span versus their lifespan?
Well, I mean, I can't promise anybody that if I give them some nutritional supplements, it's going to cure their disease or whatever. That's against the FDA's law, so I can't do that. But my first personal trainer that I had when I first had the bone density issue and decided I wasn't taking the drugs, I was going to start lifting weights. He had prostate cancer, and he was engaged, and his mom kept asking, "Well, are you going to tell her that you probably can't have children?" And um, so I told him, "Well, I can't guarantee anything, but if you try these products, I think you'll notice a difference." And because the doctor told him he would never have children. Well, he wasn't married too long after that discussion. Um, his wife got pregnant. She was having a hard time with the pregnancy. They were in their 30s, so a little bit young or old for healthy childbearing ages, but not really. And so I said, well, she should be on some products too. And it, it made a world of difference. The pregnancy went well. The mom had more energy when she used added supplements to a healthy diet, and that was in 2000. So no, let's see, no wait, not 2000. I think that was 11 years ago. And so it was a girl. She was a very healthy girl. She's now 11 years old. She was born not not the year of the 9/11, but she was born on 9/10. I said it was really lucky it wasn't 9/11 that she was born on. But anyway, so that's one story that I remember, that where we really got fantastic results. A healthy daughter. The, the dad's testicular cancer was, I can't say cured, but it's not there anymore. And the mom taking the supplements gave her body what it needed to take care of building another person, and all was healthy and well, just by using some supplements that I suggested. So that's one really big story. And then we go back to not knowing. You made a statement a few minutes ago about not knowing what to do to be healthy. I actually had some young moms that had little kids 2 and under, wanting me to teach them how to cook because their moms, they grew up with moms that cooked macaroni and cheese out of a box or something out of a can. So I was teaching these people how to cook, some simple stir fries and steamed vegetables and how to make it fun for kids to eat and all that sort of stuff. Because they didn't know. They were raised on macaroni and cheese, and that still happens today. What's on the kids menu when you go to when you go to a restaurant? 9 times out of 10, one thing on the items of the restaurant menu for kids is macaroni and cheese. Yeah, it's just I have a lot of work to do to educate people. I need help. So hopefully these talks will make it a little easier for some, And it's like you say, if you want to know how valuable health is, ask somebody who doesn't have it, and they'll tell you it's the best thing they ever had.
Yeah, powerful. And I think what's so cool too, like specifically about that nutrition part. I mean, we talked about it throughout the show. At some point, probably when we dive into nutrition, it'll be so great to have Steve on because that's basically where what he's done for majority of his life, right? Was practice and study nutrition, implement programs and things that are still
Yeah,
used today in the University of North Carolina medical school, right? And all that type of
yeah.
stuff.
When we were graduate students at UCLA, he lived in the dorm, and he was always played host to everything that went through the dorm. He got it. When we got married, I started giving my nutritional supplements that I valued, and he quit getting sick. And he thought all the supplements on the market were created according to good manufacturing practices, which means every step is quality controlled. No, he thought every one of the supplements were backed by science. No, um, so he was taking one a day brand at the time. He was always sick. Didn't help him at all. And we hadn't been married very long. They started feeling better and had more energy and wasn't getting sick. So when he got the job at the medical school, he was appalled that they weren't teaching any nutrition to the students. So he shortly after he was hired, he was put in charge of the first year medical curriculum, and that gave him a little bit of a foothold to start adding some nutrition. There was about 5 or 6 hours in the total 4 years medical school course taught on nutrition. So he got a little bit in, a little more in, and then they had a whole course on nutrition um, and more hard battles. But they now have a department of nutrition because the medical school has a pie of money, and every slice goes to the different departments. And so the departments that were already in the medical school didn't want their slice slimmed down a little bit to be able to establish a department of nutrition in the medical school. But they now have a department of nutrition in medical school because my husband saw what it did for him, and it got his attention. I mean, he's as health nut as I am. So yeah, but
Well, we'll have to have Steve on to share his side of the story, but you can
yeah, he
just kind
might
of
tell
give.
it a different way, but that's really the story.
Well, no, I mean, like, because it wasn't always that way, right? Like, the reason why I always love when we do stuff with both you and Steve is because you've basically kind of been around like health and you've known like what healthy kind of looks like your entire life. But for a lot of those people that are like, I would just use like myself as an example, right? Like you grew up in a place that had no idea about nutrition, and as a kid, you just basically eat how your parents eat. Essentially,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who are probably watching this that are gonna feel like, oh man, like I don't really know anything about nutrition. And that was really kind of like Steve's story, when he
Yeah,
first met
I
you
mean,
was.
yeah, he grew up. Mom didn't really cook. The dad did cooking, and it was things out of the box, and they ate, the typical American diet, a lot of red meat. And I've never saw chicken at their house. Um, so yeah, it was a typical red meat, steak and potatoes um, thing. and Steve Dad ate ice cream for breakfast and stuff like that. So yeah, he had no he had no upbringing of fresh fruits and vegetables. And, now we really eat a plant-based diet. Uh, our salad is the main course, and the chicken and the steamed vegetable is the side dish. So I grate up all kinds of anything I can grate, from cauliflower to beets, carrots, squash, you name it, and chop up onions and bell peppers and also celery, everything, anything I can get a hold of. Baby greens, and all those are from the farmer's market. Baby greens from the farmer's market. Toss it, and then maybe add an egg, a hard-boiled egg to it. We always have chicken that I've cooked that we do different things with. So we get our protein. We used to be pretty strong just as plant-based, but when we started working out and lifting weights, we really weren't getting enough protein from the plant-based diet that we were on. That's very difficult to get enough protein out of a plant-based diet unless you really know what you're doing. And I knew pretty much what I was doing, but it was, um, beans and rice and all that you had to make sure you had enough of to get the protein. So it was easier for our lifestyle to depend upon chicken, which I usually cook in a crock pot, have enough for the week to do different things with. So that's how we eat. And I thought it was very interesting. I in my one blood test um, done last year, my physical, it was a slight bit high, and the doctor was oh so worried about it. She said, you need to go see this person and to get this checked out. Well, that turned out to be a false positive, but so I went to see this person, this um, expertise in that subject, and they wanted to know. They asked me how many drugs I take, what drugs do I take, how often do I take the drugs, and when I told them I don't take any drugs, they looked at me and said, "Are you sure you don't take it?" No, I don't. So we went through all the exam, and the doctor said, "Yeah, that's a false negative because you don't have that." And so at the end, I said, I find it very interesting because you wanted to know what drugs I took, but you never asked me what I ate." And she didn't know what to say. And I asked her if she ate any vegetables raw. And she said, vegetables and fruits. And she said, I don't eat fruits, I eat vegetables, some vegetables. Did you ever eat them raw? No, I always eat them cooked. So even the doctor, she didn't know. They
Yeah.
just don't. They're they're educated by the drug companies. The drug reps come around and they pay, bring them a fancy lunch and they give them the spiel about this drug and that drug, and that's how they learn. That's their education. So nobody goes there and teaches them about making a steamed vegetable or a stir fry or eating vegetables raw and cooking, making a salad with a bunch of different ingredients that you would never think of putting in a salad. They don't get that kind of education.
Yeah, no, for sure. And oh man, there's so much to dive into. Like when we do an episode about nutrition, I'm sure that's going to be a loaded topic. I'm sure people are going to have questions. But this has been so fun. We have a little bit, probably about 6, 7 minutes left. I wanted to read something here that Olivia wrote, Suzanne, to see if you've heard of this. She says, there's a film I went to watch in Utah at the film festival. It's called The Game Changers. It's about
I've
the
heard
fit
of it.
it's about the fitness industry. If you haven't seen it, I implore you to. It's interesting what the media says is healthy.
Right,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, definitely. And
Yeah, it's all marketing.
I was gonna say we have 6, 7 minutes left. So if anybody has any final questions, any final thoughts, definitely feel free to drop it in the comments. Again, this is the first time that I was trying something interactive. So if anybody wants to actually like come into the studio and ask Suzanne a question or share something, you are more than welcome to just shoot me a DM, and I'm happy to send you the link to the studio. But yeah, this was fun. This this is just the beginning on this whole closing the gap between your health span versus lifespan, because like you said, Suzanne, there's so much to cover. And even within like those three respective pillars of exercise, nutrition, and supplementation, there's so much like in within each of those where it's like you could probably talk for days on each one of those conversations. And um as we wait to see if anybody has any questions or if anyone's interested in coming in and joining us in the studio and asking you a question or sharing something, what final thoughts would you share with anybody who this is something that they're thinking about, right? Like what's been really interesting for me, because I primarily serve the 50 plus age demographic, and I can't speak from experience because I'm not 50 yet, but a lot of them say that when you get to 50, it's just something about it, like things change, and I feel like it's probably that way every decade, right, as you age. But what specifically would you share to those people, Suzanne, who they're really thinking and they're realizing like, oh my gosh, I'm getting older, but instead of being able to sustain longevity and have their health not decline as they age, if somebody wants to age and almost, I don't want to say get healthier, but at least like maintain
You can
their
get
level.
healthier. You can
Yeah.
get healthier. Uh, I haven't really noticed big changes from one decade to the next. I'm pretty much as active, and I do the same things I've always done. I mean, from the time I was young, I'm still doing the same thing. I did add weight bearing exercise, and so I'm actually doing more in that category than I did when I was younger. Um, I really don't have things that I can say I can't do anymore. I mean, I'm up at 7. I'm there. I wish I could get to bed earlier, but I'm still going strong until I finally can shut things down and get in bed by 11 o'clock. Then I feel like I'm lucky I've got to bed early. But I really haven't noticed big declines in my health. I just haven't. I just practiced this my life, and it's paid off. And and just think of all the medical bills I've not had to spend. And and then too, when you're in an accident or something happens unexpectedly like that, you heal much faster. I was on my walk. This has been 5 years ago, and I tripped over the highs where the height sidewalk had raised up and tripped on that, and I unfortunately broke my patella, so I had to go to the emergency room, kicking and screaming. I did. But anyway, every doctor that I saw said, I've never seen anybody so healthy. Everybody said that. All the doctors that showed up in there back and forth, and they all said, I've never seen anybody so healthy. And there was another person, a man across the way from me in the emergency room, and he was yelling for pain pills. And, I don't take, they asked me if I wanted a pain pill. No, I don't want a pain pill. And so they did the x ray, saw that I had cracked my patella. But since I was so healthy, it didn't separate. I don't have any pins and screws and plates in my knee. The doctor said I would have to wear a straight leg brace for a minimum of 6 weeks. And when I went back for my 4 week checkup, he says, "Oh my goodness, I've never seen it this heal up so quickly." He says, "You don't need to wear the straight leg brace anymore. You just have to wear one of those, those black rubber knee things that goes pull over your up your knee." That's all. They couldn't believe how healthy I was, and that was 5 years ago. So I was in my late 70s. I mean, it just pays off. That's what you call health insurance.
Yeah, that was powerful. I think that's such a powerful way to end the show. This has been such a fun conversation, Suzanne. You're such a natural on video. I can't believe that you at f- ha- are at one point you're like, oh, I don't I don't know
I
if I
like
can do
to
my
do
video.
videos.
Right. Yeah, you're such a natural on video. And what I would suggest to anybody who attended, um obviously, like, I'll be transparent, like Suzanne and I work together, but I've met a lot of people in the health and wellness space, a lot of people. Suzanne's by far the most knowledgeable person that I've met. And to anybody who took the time to watch this, if you haven't like had a conversation with Suzanne, I highly just encourage you to reach out. I mean, if anything, she'll teach you something new about health, and it's it's just so incredible to see the longevity and the fact that you've been in this industry for, gosh, almost like twice as long as I've been alive. And
Actually, twice as long as you've been alive. Yes.
yeah, and what I like about it though is you have this like 30,000 foot view because you've seen all the changes. So it's like when all these trends and all these new things, you're like, oh, I've seen that before. I've seen that for like decades. So that's why I think it's so powerful to find somebody who has the level of experience that you do, because if not, a lot of people could feel like trying to find like a needle in a haystack, right? When you got all
Yeah.
these different
Well, there's so
options.
much.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
So much out there that's really phony nutrition.
Yeah, definitely. Suzanne, if people are interested in reaching out to you, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you? Like, where can they find you?
Well, I can give them my email address, and also I'm just finishing up um, creating a website. I've had websites, but I wanted to make one that was more robust, and it's finally getting to that point. So my website is Susie's Health Solutions.com. So that's SUZIES healthsolutions.com. And my email is Suzanne, SUZANNE, at Chaney Health, CHANEY Health, HEALTH.com. So Susie's Health Solutions.com and Suzanne at ChaneyHealth.com. I guess too, you can find me on Instagram and send me a message that way. Not Instagram, LinkedIn. Send me a message that way.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
Suzanne
Wonderful.
Chaney on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Well, Suzanne, thank you so much for your time. This was so fun. And thank you to everybody who came here to support in the audience: Sam, Angie, Olivia, Patrick. Thank you all so much for being here. And if any of you have questions, like I said, reach out to Suzanne, connect with her. And yeah, with that being said, we will see you on the next one, and wishing everybody a wonderful rest of their Thursday.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.